This is a feature showcase video for what is called the alternative loan functionality in the Tilt Analytics real estate development model. The alternative loan functionality really is just a functionality for non-traditional sources of financing in a capital stack, such as incentive financing for, say, CPACE or TIF bonds, some forms of private lending, etc. So I'm on the inputs page. If I scroll down to my hyperlink for the alternative loan, it brings me right to the input section. You'll notice there's a nickname box. I can call the loan anything I like, and it will show up throughout the model this way. There's 3 different methods for inputting what the amount of the loan is. So for example, I can input a loan amount directly, and I can say, well, all right, loans available January of 2027 for $15 million. Have a 1% origination fee on that date. Let's say there's an interest rate of 4% for an incentive. And then there's some options on how to handle the interest. So this functionality is very flexible. We can say, does the loan lend toward its own interest, like a construction loan during development? If yes, does the loan charge interest on the loan advances to cover its own interest? And also, does the lending for its own interest increase the loan amount to something higher than 15 million? Or if no, the model will lend on the loan up to a point where the project cost it's lending toward plus its interest expense totals to 15 million even. Regarding amortization, we can input whether the loan amortizes at all, and if so, on what date and what amortization term. There's some optionality on how principal gets paid back. So for example, if there's a refi, does that pay down the alt loan? And there's even some optional functionality here for prepayment penalty. If we look at another method of inputting the loan amount, I could say, well, certain financing only lends for certain project costs. So perhaps this loan only lends toward your hard costs. So then whenever you had input for that, the model will lend for the hard costs. In this case, it's $20 million. And if I go to my uses sources, for example, I can see that the incentive financing is $20 million. The hard cost is $20 million. Over in the monthly reporting here, hard costs, incentive financing. The last method of inputting how much the loan amount would be directly inputting monthly loan proceeds. So if I choose this option, this section over to here to the right comes alive, and this shows us our project costs in every month, and so we got land, horizontal development, hard costs, soft costs, and then the sum of your project costs in each month. And this functionality, one good use for this could be if you actually have 2 separate construction loans in the same project, where perhaps you're building part of it, and then where you have a round of having to put in your equity on that portion, that phase, then the loan comes in and contributes to that phase. And then when you start phase 2, you have to again contribute your equity portion, and then the bank will chip in the loan for phase 2. So the way we could do that would say, okay, I want the first loan in this section for reference. I want the first loan to lend up until December of 26. That is when the horizontal development is complete. And I want that first loan to be a 60% LTC. Well, that table here shows me that based on the assumption that equity has to go in first before the loan will put in a dime, the drawdowns, you don't draw down anything in your first couple of months. You draw down a portion of your total expense in March of 26. And then after that, the loan is covering total expenses. So these cash flows represent a 60% LTC on phase 1 up until the end of horizontal development. And then the reference column for loan 2 recognizes, okay, well, after December of 2026, we now start expenses in January of 27. The second loan will not lend for those expenses for 4 months, so that the equity portion of what remains is 40%, and then the loan kicks in and it knows exactly what portion of the expenses in May of 2027, that is, total expenses are 1.6 million, but the model recognizes that the 60% LTC for the loan would kick in 325 for that month, and then after that it covers total expenses for each month. And then this column aggregates the two. So here we have our loan draws for two separate loans combined into one that we can then directly reference in our input column here for how much you want to draw down on the loan. And then if you decide you'd like to do something different than what is recommended here, you can simply input whatever numbers you want for the drawdown. But here is our loan amounts, total amount of the loan draw, 18 million. Go to my uses sources, we see incentive financing, 18 million. And over here to the right in the monthly section, here's the loan drawdowns that we just calculated. In addition to what we just looked at, there's also a second alternative loan that can be used as well. And so, for example, the alternative loan number 2, you can call it, and again, nickname it whatever you like, and so on. But one of the interesting things here is you could say the loan amount in this case is $1.5 million. And the first alternative loan was $15 million. So you see that the 1.5 million is 9% of the total 15 million plus 1.5 million. Some forms of financing will actually lend proportionally with a construction loan. And so that's what this functionality enables you to do. You could set the first loan up as a construction loan and have this loan lend proportionally. And so if I do it this way, for example, I can see it if I go to my uses sources. I now have alternative loan 2, $1.5 million, and you'll notice that it lends proportionally every month alongside the incentive financing. Similar options here for interest rate and so on, how to treat interest if you want to have amortizing principal payments and so on. So, and of course, when you're done with all these inputs, there's a table showing you the breakdown. So the loan proceeds for the first alternative loan, the incentive financing, what the interest payments are that the loan is paying for itself, the amortizing payments, the interest payments after the property is stabilized, some other potential optionality here, and balloon payment. In this case, it's at the exit, and net cash flow for the loan, and the ending outstanding balance in each month. So very, very flexible functionality. The versatility of this is its real attribute in a sense. As I say, it gets used for various kinds of financing incentives and so on. So that's the alternative loan functionality.